All right, and we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to now talk about the Commanders and their shocking upset over the Detroit Lions to advance to the NFC Championship game. And when I talked about the one seeds and who was more likely to be upset, I did say it was the Lions, and I was right. Now, I didn't think the Lions were going to lose. I just thought when you compared the Lions and the Chiefs, and how the Chiefs just never lose in the divisional round, and that continued this past weekend, and the Lions with the injuries that they have dealt with all year, well, as the year has gone on, I just said, you know what, it could be the Lions, and that's what ended up happening. And there was a lot of scoring in this game. The Commanders won 45-31, and I don't think the Commanders punted in this game. Actually, no, they did punt once. They punted towards the end of the game. Or no, they punted to start off the second half. Lions, I think, only punted once. But it was a high-scoring affair. The Lions just could not get stops when they really needed to. They didn't. And on top of that, similar to what happened with the game we just talked about, turnovers. The Lions turned the ball over. Jared Goff, 3 interceptions in this game. He also lost a fumble as well. It was not great. And you wonder, was this the Lions' last chance before their window has closed? Because we'll talk about this tomorrow, but Ben Johnson is going to be the next head coach for the Bears. That happened. He will be officially taking the Bears' job. We'll see what happens with Aaron Glenn. But now all of a sudden, you have these 2 great coordinators, and they could be gone. So that could be a problem. But you got to give the Commanders a lot of credit here. Jaden Daniels was spectacular in this game. 22 of 31, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Made some great throws. That pass to De'Ami Brown was probably his best throw of the night. I forget where. Oh, yeah. So it happened on the drive that put them up 10-7. That set them up. Also, the other thing, too, is, they gave the Lions, a taste of their own medicine because they went for it on 4th down a handful of times, and they converted. The only time that they didn't was they had both Jaden Daniels and Marcus Mariota on the field at the same time. They tried going for it, and they didn't get it. This was their first drive of the game. They got down to the Detroit 28-yard line. It was 4th and 1. They did a direct snap to Mariota and got no push, and the Lions took over. They went 3 for 4 on 4th down. Lions went 2 for 2 on 4th down. 3rd down efficiency was not great for both teams. Commanders were 4 for 12, and the Lions were 3 for 9. And the Lions also outgained the Commanders, 521 yards to 481 yards. Commanders did possess the ball longer. Lions picked up 30 first downs. Commanders 27 first downs. But, again, turnovers was an issue for the Lions in this game. The Commanders still have not turned the ball over yet. And I was going to bring this up. I don't know which segment I was going to bring it up in. But the 4 teams that have advanced to the conference championship games, 0 turnovers combined. When talking about the Bills, Commanders, Chiefs, and Eagles, no turnovers at all. And we'll see if we get any turnovers from any of these teams on Sunday, but that's impressive. But to kind of go through it, so like I said, the Lions punted to start off the game. Commanders, they turned it over on downs. Lions went up 7-0 on their second drive. They went 6 plays, 71 yards, and you had Jahmyr Gibbs score a rushing touchdown, so that put the Lions up 7-0. Commanders kicked a field goal on their next drive to make it 7-3. On 3rd and 1, Jared Goff ended up getting sacked. Fumble was recovered by Frankie Louvu, and that made it. So then the Commanders, they responded. They went down the field to make it 10-7. And then the Lions answered. So, back and forth this game went early on. You had a nice catch by AmonRaSt.Brown for 34 yards, and later in the drive, Jared Goff, as he's falling to the ground, throws a pass to Sam Laporta, who makes an incredible one-handed catch. So that put them up 14-10. Then the Commanders, they responded again. Terry McLaurin, a 58-yard touchdown. He's able to weave his way through the Lions defenders. There was good blocking there. He was able to weave through and, tiptoe down the sideline. Lions were not able to tackle him, and he ended up scoring. And that made it 17-14. And then this is where I was starting to think, yeah, this is not looking good for the Lions. They might end up losing this game, potentially. And that was when Jared Goff threw a pick six. Now, Goff actually got injured on the play, took a vicious hit from, I believe it was Frankie Louvu, and he was evaluated for a concussion and was probably playing with a concussion because he did not look right after that. So actually, Teddy Bridgewater came into the game. So they were down 24-14, the Lions. Teddy Bridgewater comes in. Jahmyr Gibbs, 14-yard run. Well, first, there was a false start. Gibbs gets most of it back with a 14-yard run. Then Bridgewater connected with Gibbs for 3 yards. And then you had an end around with Jameson Williams, and he scores a 61-yard touchdown. So that made it 24-21. Then Goff comes back in the game. But the Commanders, before that, they go 7 plays, 70 yards. You had the 38-yard pass to AmonRaSt.Brown. So he had a couple of big catches in this game. And later, Jaden Daniels connects with Zach Ertz on 3rd and goal to score the touchdown. And that made it 31-21. So Goff comes back in. And the Lions are driving. But Goff underthrows the ball just a bit to Jameson Williams. That gets intercepted. So they don't get any points out of that drive. So, you could have went into the half. It could have been a one-score game. It was not. And Commanders did open up the second half punting. Lions scored a touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs an 8-yard touchdown. But then the Commanders scored again. They went 15 plays, 70 yards, almost 8.5 minutes down the field. They went for it on 4th down. They got it on this drive. They went for it on 4th down twice. Actually, this was bad. This wasn't a turnover or anything, or the Commanders converting. It was just the Lions shooting themselves in the foot because they had too many men on the field at the 5, and that set up a 1st and goal, and they ended up scoring. Brian Robinson from 1 yard out scored. So that made it 38-28. Goff throws another interception. Actually, no, Goff didn't throw an interception. They did the trick play, the double reverse with Jameson Williams. He throws it, and that gets intercepted. And that Jameson Williams should not have thrown that ball, but he ended up doing that. And that led to another Commanders touchdown. They went for it on 4th down again. Jaden Daniels connected with Terry McLaurin for a 12-yard reception, and then Jeremy McNichols scored from 1 yard out, and that made it 45-28. Lions did kick a field goal to make it 45-31 on their next drive. Commanders missed a field goal on their next drive, but Goff ended up throwing another pick. And that's all she wrote. That is all she wrote. Turnovers, turnovers, turnovers. And then, obviously, the too many men on the field was a killer penalty. But yeah, Jaden Daniels was impressive. Like I said, 299 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. Brian Robinson, 77 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. Jaden Daniels had 51 yards on the ground. Eckler had 47 yards on the ground. He had a 35-yard run earlier in the game. They ran the ball for almost 200 yards, 182 yards and 3 touchdowns. AmonRaSt.Brown had a couple of big catches, like I said, 6 receptions for 98 yards. Terry McLaurin, 4 for 87 and a touchdown. He'll be playing in his first NFC Championship game. Eckler, 4 for 41. Zach Ertz had the touchdown. Jamison Crowder had 2 for 25. And the Commanders, 4 takeaways in this game. Actually, 5 takeaways in this game because you had the fumble and then the 4 picks, 1 thrown by Jameson Williams and the other 3 were thrown by Goff. And then the Commanders' defense, 2 sacks of Goff in the game, who went 23 of 40 for 313 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. Jahmyr Gibbs, he finishes the season strong, 105 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. Jameson Williams had 61 yards on the ground and a touchdown. David Montgomery, 7 carries for 28 yards. Goff also had a scramble for 7 yards. And the Lions ran the ball for 200 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. AmonRaSt.Brown, a big day, 8 receptions for 137 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs, 6 for 70. The Lions defense, no sacks of Jaden Daniels in the game. And yeah, that's all she wrote for the Lions. A disappointing end to their season. So when you look at the top 7 quarterbacks, the top highest paid quarterbacks, now you extend it to the top 7. Remember when I was talking about the top 5 and he extended it and Justin Herbert and Jared Goff were in the top 7? Well, Jared Goff did not come through, and the top 7 highest paid quarterbacks Zero playoff wins. Zero between those 7 quarterbacks. It's unbelievable. And Dan Campbell was emotional after the game. It's tough. It's tough because they had an incredible year. That NFC North, we talked about being the best division in football. They had no playoff wins. Zero. And they're going home. They're losing Ben Johnson. They're probably losing Aaron Glenn. And they got to figure it out. They had a lot of injuries this year. That played a role in why they lost this game because they just could not stop the Commanders. And on top of that, too, running that play with Jameson Williams where he's looking to throw it and he throws the pick, you shouldn't be doing that in that moment. Shouldn't. Because it leads to an interception, and then, that basically was all she wrote at that point. Again, Jared Goff got hurt in the game. Was able to come back in and finish it, but he just was not sharp, turning the ball over. It's just turnovers, and just on top of that, your defense is not able to get stops. That is ultimately what cost the Lions this game here. And some people say, well, Ben Johnson shouldn't have been taking interviews because this was a big week, and maybe, because of that, he wasn't fully focused on the game plan going in. Either way, they lost this game. And this Commanders team continues to make me look foolish because, again, I had them winning 4 games, didn't even have them sniffing the playoffs. And they are 1 game away from going to the Super Bowl. And they'll be taking on an Eagles team, which we will talk about in the next segment. It's going to be a good game. It's going to be a good game. The games that we got for Championship Sunday, they're going to be pretty good. So, give them all the credit in the world. Dan Campbell, Cliff Kingsbury, Jane Daniels, that team, they are playing with a lot of confidence right now. They could be going on a run like the Giants once did. Because the Giants, they beat an NFC South team, right, in the Falcons. They beat a 15-1 Packers team. The Commanders, they beat, a 15-2 team, right, in the Lions, an NFC North team. And now they're going to be taking on a division rival in the NFC Championship game this upcoming week, which is not going to be easy, because the Eagles are really good. But the Commanders beat them once this year. And, the first matchup between the two when, both quarterbacks were playing, Jalen Hurts, played that whole game. But, Jane Daniels was a little banged up in the meeting in Philly the last time they went against each other in Philly. So we'll see how it goes. But just a disappointing end for the Lions. And like I said, they're losing Ben Johnson. They're going to probably lose Aaron Glenn, and we'll see how they regroup. But, this could have been the year. And it just ends with a thud. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think, though, about this game. What were your takeaways from it? Let me know in the comments. So we're going to take our next break. And then when we come back, we will talk about the Rams-Eagles game. Eagles picking up the win. We'll talk about that, how it unfolded when we come back from our next break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.